guess who's back again.
In Ireland.
We put out a question box on Insta to see what you wanted to ask us about. And the questions have changed over the past 5 to 7 years. It used to be very sexy and it was like all friendships related, all parenting related.
We hadn't seen each other for over a year. And when we like ran towards each other at the airport, we just both burst into tears.
And it's weird. I don't feel like it's been that long.
Because we talk all the time.
But it was like the longest, I think that was the longest we've ever not seen each other.
Probably since we met.
Yeah. Some of you haven't been here a long time. So someone said, how did you meet Hannah? Basically, in long story short,
I want to tell the long story.
She was the last person that had shagged the person I was shagging.
That is the short story. Yeah. But the long story is we met at Summer in the City, which is a like
YouTube convention
thing.
Here that moment is here.
Hopefully I was polite.
Feckinija, and this is Feckinija. This is Hannah and Daniel.
But then it was after the fact when your situationship with that person
was
crumbled.
Yeah.
And then one person who you felt like you could reach out to
was
this complete stranger who you knew had shagged him in the past. And I just remember being like, okay, why me? And there was like this woman I barely know sending me absolute essays. But I was just like, do you know what? I'm ready to bitch about this guy. So I'm in. And then we just like developed a friendship from there.
Yeah.
And you're not the first person that I have like bonded with and created a friendship over having
a shared
history with the same person. Yeah.
Nice. It was an interesting introduction to the friendship.
A few months after that I think we next saw each other in person, because Summer in the City was like August, and then we saw each other again in October at Buffer Festival. And I feel like that weekend of seeing each other in person after all of these messages and getting to know each other, that we were like, oh, we're pals. We're mates.
Yeah. Do you remember the boob dance?
Yes. Your favourite and least favourite memory from your friendship?
How do you even do least favourite? Because
I have a least favourite,
okay.
But it's not to do with you. It's to do with something that happened when we were together, and it was when my dad had the heart attack.
Yes.
So we were like on a work trip, landing in Stockholm.
Yeah.
We were all excited. We were in a cafe, and then I got this horrible phone call from my auntie.
Yeah.
And like
you knew the moment you saw her name, like on your phone.
I knew something was wrong. But the funny thing about that was it was such a bonding experience, because you were really there for me. Like you were amazing at like keeping my mind off things, because I couldn't fly home until the next day. And favorite memories, like I have so many with you, just
so many ridiculous.
I think for me it will always be the pool with me, you and Callum.
I was gonna say hot tub.
The hot tub. You and Callum.
The hot tub.
There was a lot of alcohol involved.
You and Cal are like both sober now, and I like barely drink.
Yeah.
It's so funny how our lives have
changed. My God, but just some wild times.
I think we've been very lucky in the fact that because of our job and because we don't live in the same place, so much of our like beginnings of our friendship in those first like few years were always just like meeting in different countries and like going to different
I've been in more countries with you than I have been with my husband. Like, the next question was, have you guys ever hooked up? And this just made me laugh, because I remember there was a stage where a lot of people thought we were like seeing each other, but just like what was the word that people used to like you know, when they would pretend they were gay for views or something like that. What was that called? Yeah, they thought we were like, you know, dangling it without like revealing it. But what's really funny about this is I was thinking about it, and we did, because we both kissed the same person at the same time.
I was like, I'm gonna wonder if you were gonna remember that.
Yeah. So I was like, technically we did.
We both kind of fancied the same person.
Yeah.
Who I can't remember if I was sleeping with him at that point or if I previously had.
You had.
But there was like flirty vibes, and I introduced him to you, and there was like mad flirty vibes between the two of you.
But then we were all kind of flirting.
Then we met up with him, and the three of us like we met up for a drink, and it was just like mad flirty vibes between the three of us, and we had like a three-way snog at the end of the evening.
And we never spoke about it again. That was it. I just love you. This was really interesting. Do you learn each other's news from videos/social or through personal chats and calls? And like, it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Because we do get to cut out a lot of the catching up that you kind of do with a lot of friends, where you're meeting up and telling each other all the really basic, you know, stuff about what you're doing and what's going on in your life, because we already know certain things from each other's. Like, I always watch your videos. Like, my daughter recognized you, I think, from you being on the TV.
She's very suspicious of me.
She's like, wait a minute. It's like Miss Rachel's in the house. Like, yeah, I do think, though, there's a lot of things that we would never put online that we tell each other in like calls and
then
stuff.
like, for instance, like as a example with your recent health stuff, I knew about it very briefly. Like, I think it was just happening, and you texted me something and then I didn't hear from you for ages, and I remember being like, I wonder how Mel's doing, and then the next thing I know, on your Instagram stories, you're like, yeah, I've been in and out of hospital, and I was like, oh, okay, shit. And then what was good about that, though, then we chatted and reached out, but obviously you were still in it, and so you didn't really have much capacity.
I didn't, like, for messages,
like telling me what's going on kind of thing. I remember messaging Thomas, though.
Yeah.
So I was in touch with Thomas, and he was kind of updating me about
poor Thomas trying to deal with it, trying to hold up the whole house
and the
children.
I honestly was just like, don't feel like you need to respond to me immediately. You've got your hands full. Then you posted your video talking about the whole thing, and I was like, great, I can sit down and watch that and catch up with what's happened with you, even though I've kind of like got glimpses of it.
It's so handy, isn't it?
It's actually quite useful. Because I'm like, okay, great, I understand what's happening, and then we'll chat, and you don't need to catch me up on it.
All the basics.
You can then just kind of like give me the deets.
Yeah, the
like,
juicy deets.
the in-between stuff that gets missed out.
I sometimes wish all my friends did what we do, because then you could kind of like cut out so much wasted friend date time where you could just get to like the meat. I feel like sometimes I meet up with a friend and we spend the whole meal or whatever just filling each other in on the surface level stuff that you don't get to have a really deep conversation, and I love that about our friendship. Like, this next question kind of goes into that. So how to keep friendships in the real world when friends live so far away? And what we tend to do is like just literally dedicate like days between like past times we've hung out. There'd be like these huge gaps of not seeing each other even for an hour, but then we're together for days, so you just get much more quality time than
and you get to kind
regular
of immerse
time.
yourself in the other person's life a bit. The other thing that we do, like in the middle time, to kind of keep in touch so that we're not having to do a catch up is just a lot of texting here and there, but then the other thing is a lot of voice notes. And we've started doing video notes instead of voice notes. So you just get this video of like you just vlogging to me. And we do a lot of FaceTimes when the kids are around as well, so the kids can kind of like say hi to each other and like know who each other are.
How do you, this is a juicy one, how do you deal with topics you feel very differently about, like spirituality or diet? Because there are some things where like chalk and cheese, like but I think in the early days, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like we did wind each other up a bit about things, but I feel like now we just avoid those topics more.
But it's not even like avoiding them, it's more just like accepting difference, which is really beautiful. I've seen this TED talk that was about like creativity, and like I very much apply a lot of the stuff she talked about in that to like relationships, and one of the things was around like acceptance, but it's about accepting differences, because it's really boring if everyone's the same to you.
I don't want to hang out with more of me. Like I'm with myself too much already.
And we don't differ in some of the ways where I would be like, I cannot be friends with somebody who believes this or thinks this. It's just like you just do things and think things differently to me. Like I take the piss out of you a bit for manifesting.
But even how we are as people, how we operate, like you just saw my desktop, like it's just shit everywhere, you know, she's so organized, like we're really different in so many ways, but I think the important stuff is all there. Like we've a shared sense of humor about a lot of things, we like a lot of the same topics of conversation. I don't think you have to be very similar to your friends, you know, to be friends.
I think you need enough common ground.
And
also it's interesting because I'm like, there's some things that like you know loads about, and like research rabbit holes that you'll go down in certain things. I'm like, I can't be bothered, but I'll just ask Mel. I'm like, Mel, like, what's the thing about co-sleeping or like breastfeeding? Because I like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I yeah, I don't know. Like, there's some things that I agree, like we're similar in and we agree on, but like you'll go deeper.
Yeah,
and I'll be like,
do you know
I'll
what that
go
is? That's an
surface level.
insecurity thing, because I'm always trying to like justify my own decisions to myself.
Right.
You know,
and I'm just thinking, oh, Mel's figured it out.
No, but you just trust your own intuition more than I do, because I'm very much like, I have to have hard facts to back this up, or else I'll feel bad about it.
Do you know what? Actually, I think one of our biggest differences is that I think I'm more skeptical and you're more gullible.
Optimistic and gullible. Yeah.
You have like a close family member who is very susceptible to like conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And I appreciate that you can recognize that. I think if you were that far, we couldn't be friends.
No.
But I feel like, you know, you're related to that person. And so it's like,
yeah,
there's a little bit of that in you.
And
sometimes I have to rein me in.
Because I think we had this conversation, did we, during the pandemic when I was terrified to get vaccinated?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
there's still stuff like that.
I will not be visiting you.
Yeah, yeah. And we're close enough that we can have those really difficult conversations about things and it not make you really uncomfortable. Like, I think it's like family level friendship where, you know, I can talk about all sorts of things with my dad that we completely disagree on, but he's my dad. Like, and I feel like you're my Hannah, you know what I mean? We learn from each other in that way. Like, there's lots of things that like I would seek your advice on and things. And even though like I'm older than you, you know what I mean? I always look up to you in that way. I do. A lot of people asked this: how do you find your parenting styles differ and how are they similar? So there was like a million varieties of that question.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked at how many similarities there are, because I thought they would be really different.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I really did. But like they are different in some ways. I'd be quicker to raise my voice, I think, than you. I've not seen you being like in a,
You've not
I
seen
mean
me
in a good way.
discipline,
Yeah. But no, you do discipline him, but I'm struggling with my discipline, if you get me, because of how I was disciplined. I don't want to be a shouty parent, you know. But I find myself like I'm quicker to get angry, I think, and things like that. I get triggered more by kids based on my own childhood experiences, whereas like you had like a very happy, stable childhood. And not that my childhood was bad. I loved my childhood, but there was just stuff, you know?
There was stuff.
Yeah. And that kind of leaks into my parenting a bit. But in terms of how we parent similarly, like, yeah, we've both breastfed for a long time and bed shared, and we'd be very big into like a lot of the gentle parenting topics. And
which is another one of those things where it's like, I feel like I've just learned vicariously through you. But again, with the instinct and the intuition thing, I've gone, yeah, that makes sense to me. I like that. Whereas if I didn't, then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, cool. I can get on board with that. I feel like there's going to be like more
many more
rules
things
and things, like as they get older and get more independent.
Yeah.
Then we
See, Rowan is still younger, that you've not had to have a lot of the conversations with him yet that I'm deling with right now.
Yeah.
So like,
I know, watching you with your eldest,
like trying to teach him not to interrupt.
This is my future.
Yeah,
oh God.
Because see, I'm bad at interrupting, and he learns off me, and I model to him.
Adults do it all the time.
Adults do it. Yeah, we read off each other. Where is it appropriate to self-insert?
And then part of me is just like, oh, are we actually like engrossed in our own conversation that we're just ignoring him, so actually we're in the wrong.
I know.
And we should be paying him attention.
I know. It's hard. It's like I'm my biggest parenting thing right now is trying to teach my 3-year-old when is and isn't appropriate to interrupt when two adults are speaking. You know, I want him to be in school and for people to be nice to him, and for people to be nice to him, he has to be nice to be around. And so I'm so conscious of that, like ways in which I may or may not be able to shape that. But then a lot of it is personality. Like some kids are just a certain way and it's nothing to do with,
and like neurodivergence as well.
Yeah. That is all ahead with you and Rowan. Like a lot of those topics, like potty training and
I just thought of one thing where we really differ, but not for lack of like disagreeing, but more just like our practical situation, which is that Rowan's been in childcare since he was 3 months old, and your kids aren't.
My husband's mother does mind our son sometimes. He not as much as she used to, because it's actually easier to mind two kids than take one sibling away because they entertain each other. So I almost prefer him being here now because she's not old enough for me to leave her with my mother-in-law, but I could probably leave her with a childminder.
Yeah.
Because my mother-in-law, you know, I just wouldn't want her to have to run around after a baby that size, that, you know, at her stage in life. I just want her to be able to relax, and, you know, I'm so close to her, and I don't want to be putting that on family, you know, and it's different in every family. Like, you know, sometimes she's just like, I really want to hang out with them and take them and stuff, but it's more with childcare. It's like, you know, a job, like it's a contract. It's like a come at this time, and when that's been crossed over with family, you're usually a little bit looser around it. Because I remember you were saying that to me before we had our arrangement. You were kind of saying like it was that TV show Motherhood or something. Motherland. Yeah. But there's just a whole storyline in that where the grandmother is just like, I don't want to be minding your kids, like, leave me alone.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Mothers make mistakes. Can you babysit next week? No.
Unbelievable.
And Hannah was just like, just to be conscious of that and stuff. And
FYI. Dan works like a normal Monday to Friday 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Whereas with Thomas, like, you might be paying for childcare one day, but Thomas is home.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I totally get why you haven't done it, because it like practically makes no sense.
It's impossible as well to, like, how are you supposed to hire someone and be like, we don't know when we're going to need you next week.
Yeah, exactly.
No one is going to want that job. They're like, no, I need to know when I'm working and what I'm getting. And I don't, like, he gets his roster. It's different every month, and he gets it like with 1 month in advance. And, you know, asking
and that's another one of the
someone
reasons why we haven't seen each other, is because of Thomas's work schedule.
Job. Yeah, it's insane. And I think to expect someone as well to, like, sometimes work mornings, sometimes work evenings, it's just bananas. Our situation, like, we kind of just make do with, you know, a grandparent here and there, and totally just running with it, no idea what we're doing.
That actually makes me think of another question that I saw, which was, what's one thing that made you feel super proud of the other four? And one of those things for me, in terms of being proud of you, is just like how you managed to do the parenting thing without any, like, structural childcare. And, like, I'm like,
I've barely
Jesus Christ,
managed.
like, well fucking done.
I think that's why my body
and then
broke
also,
down recently.
That did happen. That did happen. But you wrote a whole book when your eldest was like,
he was a baby.
Yeah, in his first year.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like,
Aww.
I look at that and I'm like, I could never. I could never send the child off, pay a childminder, goodbye, farewell.
Do you know what?
Like,
what I'm really proud of you for is recently just, like, making that decision with your whole career and everything, because I know that was such a huge choice to make. So Hannah, if you're not aware, has been a sex educator online for 10 years. And you had a second channel that was like lifestyle stuff, and she decided to stop posting like all her sex ed content. And it wasn't just that, it was like a podcast, and to start up a new business venture, which you're kind of starting to develop now, like helping other creators with their stuff. The main reason I'm so proud of you for it is because I've seen other creators talk about this, where there's an expectation that you're going like, and that going like this in your career means getting the studio, getting the team, making everything bigger,
growth and scaling
growth
up,
and bigger and bigger. And then loads of them have actually said, you know what, I'm doing all of this extra work and it's just adding loads of extra stress, but not necessarily loads of extra money. So it's not worth it. And I'm going to prioritize my mental health, my family time.
I think for me as well, like, part of making that decision was a real, like, lesson in defining what success is for me.
Yeah.
Because I'd bought into the whole, like, I have to have, like, this really successful YouTube channel that's always growing and building out a team and like getting more and more views and subscribers all of the time, and that just, like, wasn't happening. And I was like, okay, what actually do I want? When
I wasn't well earlier this year, I just realized what success was for me, and like now I like don't work in the evenings. I know last night we were
I'm
working.
so proud of you for that.
Yeah.
Not the working last night with me, but the generally setting those
boundaries. And like, I've had way more boundaries with like what I do and don't share. Like there's certain details that I share online that are very intimate details, but there's so much things that I just don't go near, and I'm just like, I just want to enjoy this for myself. I don't have this expectation I have to share this, and like I'm enjoying my life a lot more. I'm
enjoying my life a lot more too.
Yeah, it's just so much nicer having like, and with views, like being like, right, if my video gets 30,000 views, like I have an amazing audience that shows up for my videos, like instead of being like, why isn't it 60,000, why isn't it 90,000? You know, that was a really massive mindset shift for me to make, and I think it's just helped seeing like you and other people do that has made me be like, I'm gonna be happy with where I am. I'm getting paid still to make content 10 years later. Like, how? That's amazing. Like, that's
how are we still here?
I know. There was a lot of questions about losing friends when you become a mother, feeling disappointed by your friends after having a baby, and like feeling lonely and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to talk a bit about that stuff, because I definitely think that certain friendships changed after I had a baby. For me, it wasn't a case of like feeling disappointed by my friends. But I did have a big struggle with feeling disappointment in general about like the way society is structured, you know?
Yeah.
That was a huge issue for me, and still it's like an ongoing thing I think about all the time. And
because I don't want my friends who aren't planning on having kids or don't have kids yet to like change the whole way they organize their life to fit around my new situation. But I do think that also like there are different seasons of your life that require different friends. And that's fine. But also I feel like there is a huge communication gap between parents and their non-parent friends, because I've seen this play out in like the comment sections of like videos and stuff, or like social media posts where I've talked about like friendship and motherhood and stuff, and it's like the parents will be like, my friends all abandoned me, no one comes over, I don't see my friends anymore, like none of them want to come meet my kid, none of they don't invite me to things anymore.
And the other friends are saying the opposite.
And the other friends are like, we don't invite you to things anymore because you said no to the last like 5 things we invited you to. The other friends are like, oh, I don't want to intrude. Like, oh, I don't think that they'll want me just to like call them up randomly or invite myself over. And then the parents are like, no, fucking invite yourself over, please. For the love of God. And it's just like this absolute failure and breakdown of communication of people just assuming they know what the other person wants and not actually asking each other.
I'm definitely going through that, because I never want to ask people to come to me, because I feel like they'll be just like, why do we have to go to you? But then anytime then I have spoken to them about it, they're just like, you know, like, please let me know, because I'm not going to just like assume that you want me to come over, because, you know, you have so much going on.
We're all trying to be so polite, like, oh, let me know like when you want me to come over, instead of being like, I'm coming over. Or like, or actually like inviting, or actually go, hey, do you want to come over?
Do you know what people used to just do? They used to just show up at your door and knock.
I know. One of the things that I've been trying to do is invite friends over for dinner. They will come over, we'll maybe do the childcare run together. They can look after Rowan, they can play with him whilst I cook dinner.
Yes.
Great. Then Ro goes to bed, and then we have adult time.
That,
and that is the kind of like socializing that works really well for me at the moment, because then it also doesn't involve me like having to negotiate with Dan about like, oh, can I go out? Are you okay to like solo parent this evening? And like feeling weird about that.
Exactly what we're doing as well, but mine is one step lazier, where we just get a takeaway. It's really hard for us all to find an evening when we're all free because of partners and stuff. But they usually come here. Just with the layout of my house, it's really handy because it's like long. There's no upstairs, so there's less chance of waking sleeping kids. So they prefer coming here for meals, which suits me. Like I can't drive alone yet.
Come on over.
And I love that, because the kids are asleep. The topic of loneliness comes up so much, and I think I have not spoken with one mother who hasn't expressed that it's a lot lonelier than they expected it to be. And you know, and there are ways to deal with that, but it's like, it seems to be just baked into being a mother in 2024 because of how everything is structured. And it's just, the world is just not.
But not even just
like,
for parents.
Everyone.
Like literally everyone. But then you add a child to the mix, and then it's just like another logistical thing.
Yeah, that you have to work around.
Just like,
naps, meals. I've gotten a lot better at telling people when I'm feeling like that. And it is usually family that I kind of lean on. But like, my husband and I spend a lot of time with my in-laws, like with his parents and with my dad. And, you know, my brother will come over with his fiance. And so we try and do, you know, have more quality time with people. And like, 'cause my love languages are quality time, physical touch, and I definitely think that they tend to like apply to all my relationships. Do you know what I mean? Like, but me and you, someone asked that, like, do your love languages ever like, you know, come up in your platonic friendships? And I do think there's been times where me and you be like lying in bed and just, you know, being physically close, as well as like wanting quality time over just like a little blippy half an hour here and there.
Well,
you know?
it's not good enough. Hence why we cried when we saw each other, because like,
God, I'm
like,
so happy.
You know, it's all well and good to like keep in touch. What we really want is to see each other.
Properly. Yeah. Coping with loneliness though, like quick fire tips would be like, for me, I just like play a lot of podcasts and stuff to have adult voices in the background. It just makes me feel, and even just like the radio, you know, it's such an old woman thing to say, but we put the radio on, and it just feels like there's people around to fulfill that need for adults, even if they're imaginary and invisible.
My thing, it's not like working all of the time, but I'm determined for it to like work some of the time or eventually, which is being that annoying friend who is messaging in the group chat of like, hey, does anyone want to do this thing? Or it's like, hey, is anyone free this day?
I'm
or like,
not
hey,
that friend.
I'm going, me and Rowan are going to do this. Does anyone want to join? Like, I am doing it constantly. I'm the one that's like more than anyone else. And it sometimes is a bit soul destroying because
people be like, no,
people just
sorry,
blank you, or just say no, they're busy, and it's like quite disheartening. But then when it does work out, it's life-giving. Every sort of like group chat, every friend group like needs one person.
Ours is Vicky. Thank you, Vicky, if you're watching. My God,
that's the thing.
Every meetup is because of her. Like, basically,
and
everyone.
I've just like become that person who's the one who become the Vicky. And it's exhausting, and it's quite emotionally like hard. So like, Vicky, I feel for you.
We all need to be a Vicky.
Like, or just thank the Vicky. Like, appreciate your
thank
Vickies.
you, Vicky. We also filmed a video on Hannah's channel about clothes and fashion and
parenting.
Actually, the baby is literally tossing and whinging. Yeah. So this is time to wrap it up. But thank you very much to Hannah for being on my channel.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. She's gonna go home with an Irish accent. Determined to sound lovely. Say slán go fóil.
Oh, what's that mean? Don't be making me swear in another language.
No, just say slán.
Slán. Does that mean see ya?
Yeah.
Slán.